Can everyone see the screen now?
Yes, miss.
All right then.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, miss.
So again, for those of you who weren't here the last meeting, I'd just like to tell you that for this class, you don't have to show your video. All I'd like you to do is pay full attention to what I'm doing on the screen. I'm going to ask questions where, well, after explaining a few things, and if there isn't anything you don't understand, please put on your mic and speak so I know that you don't understand or you'd like me to go over a particular area. All right. Now, due to the time that we have, I'm not too sure if I'll be able to finish both drawings within the hour span that we have. I'm going to try my best. Okay. So this is not a video where you have to walk along with, but if you can, you're open to the option of doing so. But I will be posting this video on YouTube after the class has ended. Wherever we've stopped today, we're going to just continue that next week. If it just so happens that we finish the roof plans today, then we're going to just move on to foundations next week, God's willing. Other than that, on Sunday, I will be posting the next topic, which is foundations, for y'all to make an attempt to start. Because I know there are few children who have finished their roof plans a while now and they need to move on. All right. Now, before we start, I'd like you to get yourselves in attitude for prayer. Sign yourselves. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Okay, so this morning we'll be focusing on hip roofs and then transitioning into hip and valley roofs. Okay. Now, in terms of the dimensioning and labeling for the roofs, I will not be going through those in details because once you do it once, it's basically doing the same thing for all the other four corners. I'm going to only show you how to label your one part of the drawing and you're allowed to do the rest by yourselves. Okay? So I'm assuming that from those of you in 4C, you've been able to complete a gable roof. I would like a verbal response, please. Were you able to finish the gable roof?
Yes, miss.
All right then. Now, what I'll be showing you today is how to create a hip and valley roof. All right. Now, just as the gable roof, you would need the outline, the building outline of the floor plan which you've drawn before attempting the roof plan. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just take, even though I've already created a hip roof here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the outline of the existing building and then create another drawing below it. So in order to do so, you can either use a regular line or polyline, but in this case, polylines are easier to use to capture the entire outline of the building. So using the default layer, I'm going to select polyline and select the four edges of our building. All right. Now once that is done, I'm going to select the line and then move it towards the bottom of my screen. So this here is my building outline. Now, the thickness of the wall is determined on what's the thickness of the wall within your floor plan. If your thickness of your wall is 150, you offset inwards 150 millimeters. If it's 100 millimeters, you offset inwards 100 millimeters. So it all depends on the thickness of your floor plan wall, the external walls of your floor plan. In my case, my walls are 150 millimeters thick. So within the outline that I have here, I'm going to offset 150 inwards. All right. Does everyone understand so far?
Yes,
Verbal
miss.
response, please. All right, then, thank you. Now, within my layers, we'll already have the pre-existing layers from the other roof plan, that I've done. So what I'm going to do is change my building outline into the color yellow, but it should be yellow hidden lines, all right? Apparently, I don't think I have that. All right. So I'm not going to go through that today. All you need to know is that the building outline for your roof plan should be yellow. So take note of that, please, okay? In terms of what type of line should be there, I'm not going to go through that as yet, but we may be able to tackle it some other time, all right? From there, we're going to then create our eave in order to place our fascia board on our roof, okay? In this case here, our eave is, supposed to measure from the edge of the building, is 250 millimeters, okay? So from the edge of the building, we measure 250 before we meet the inner edge of our fascia board, all right? So for those of you who may not know what the eave is the distance between the building and the fascia board within your roof. So I'm gonna offset 250 outwards, not inwards. In this case, you may start to be a bit confused about which line is which, and this is where you should at least have these layers pre-existing before you attempt your drawing, all right? So this line, this third line here, which I offset at 250 millimeters, will represent the inner edge, will represent the inner edge of my fascia board, all right? So I'm going to select the line, then select the fascia board layer, and automatically it turns red. From there, I'm going to offset 25 millimeters to represent the thickness of my fascia board. And there's no need for me to change a layer because the previous layer before that was already red. All right? Does everyone understand so far? Verbal response, please. I'm going to start calling persons one by one to answer.
Yes, miss. Yes, miss. Yes.
Thank you.
Miss.
Now, is there anyone who does not understand so far? Okay, silence is consent in my case, so I'm going to move on. There's someone with the stuff on. Marissa, pause your video, please. Thank you. And well, Amaya can't hear me. Can someone please type in the group chat and ask Amaya to put on her mic because I don't think she could hear me. Thank you. All right. So we have our building outline in place. We have our fascia board in place. Now, for those of you who may not know, a hip roof is different from a gable roof because it has 4 slopes within its edge. A gable roof only has 2 slopes. So with the hip roof, we need to have rafters which will join at a common point. These rafters are called hip rafters, and then they're connected by a ridge board within the center. The same ridge board that creates stability within a gable roof is the same ridge board that creates stability within a hip roof as well. All right, so without drawing being here, I'm going to use the default layer, which is white. I'm going to draw a line at 45-degree angle, at a 45-degree angle to meet within the center of my drawing. Now, to ensure that your line stays at 45, you go at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You're going to see a circle with an angle within it that looks like a pizza slice. This here is the restrict cursor. You ensure that you change the angle to at least 45, 90, 35. Okay? As previous, I had as 30, 60, 90 because I wanted my lines to be at that angle. In this case, you want yours to be at 45, 90, 135. So you select or ensure that there's a tick next to that option there. Another thing is ensure that the light is always on. And for the snap cursor, ensure that icon is on as well. Ensure that you have at least these parts here ticked off. Well, these here don't really matter, but in terms of the endpoint and midpoints, ensure that these two here are ticked off at least. So once you've checked that, you're going to start from the edge, the inner edge of your fascia board, and draw a line inwards at 45-degree angle. If you can see on my screen, it snaps at 45, or it shows you at what angle the lines are at. And automatically, you're going to know when it's at 45 when it snaps, and you see a green extension projecting outwards from the line that you just drew. You do the same thing for on the other side. And then you trim the excess line within the center. All right. Now you can do the same thing up on the other side, or like what I'm about to do, I'm going to select these two lines and mirror it so that it's represented on the other side. Now to ensure that's centered, make sure that there's an even line or a straight line that shows the exact center point within the image, and you just mirror it. It's going to ask you to erase the source object. You're going to say no because you want the source object. And there we go with the outline for our hip roof. Okay. Once that is done, you're going to draw a line within the center, connecting both hip rafters, and that there is your ridge board. Is there anyone who does not understand so far? All right then. So the thickness of your rafters, whether it be common hip rafters, ridge boards, they vary in thickness depending on the size of your structure and the specifications. All you need to know right now is that the most common thickness of a rafter is 50 millimeters or 2 inches. That's the most common and the most used size of rafter in terms of its thickness. All right. So from the plan view, all of your rafters, whether it be ridge, hip jack rafter, hip rafter, common rafter, they all measure 50 millimeters, as you can see here. All right. So seeing that these white lines here represent where the rafters are going to be placed, this here is not the thickness of the rafter. You must include the thickness. So seeing that these lines represent the center points, it means that we have to find the thickness by offsetting the distance on both sides. So if that rafter is 50 millimeters thick, it means that you need to offset from the center line 25 millimeters on both sides. 25 plus 25 equals 50. So I'm going to offset 25. Do the same thing on the other side. Move to the other option. Now, if you want, what you can do, you can just do the hip rafters on the thickness on this side. And once you've trimmed everything, you can just mirror it instead of having to do it 4 times. All right. Now, as you can see, I'm not doing the ridge as yet. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do the ridge one time as well. Again, the thickness 25 on both sides. So you'll come up with a 50mm thickness. Now, once that is done, you're going to remove the center lines and keep the thickness of the outer lines. Okay? All right. Now you'll have to trim all the excess lines that you see that cross over into the fascia board. So I'm going to trim these sections here, come down, trim these sections here, go across, trim, go upwards, and trim. Now we have to focus on this particular area right here where the hip rafters meet the ridge board. Now, for those of you who have done your connections within the textbook, the sketches, you may understand how this here works. For those of you who have not, I urge that you look at your textbooks and actually look at the detailed drawings of these areas here. Now, what needs to be done is that you need to create the ridge board to extend or protrude at a point where both hip rafters can connect to it. All right, so this section here, even though it runs in line with the ridge board, this here is not a ridge board. The ridge board stops right here. Whereas this section here, this is a common rafter. And where that line is, this here is the ridge board itself, okay? So in order to represent this here within our drawing down here, what you need to do is extend these two lines, or these two parts of the ridge board to touch the edge of the hip rafter. Now there are a lot of lines here, so I'm going to break it down slowly for you to understand. I'm going to first trim the excess lines here and these two parts right there. So the only line I'm going to leave are these two sections right there. Once that is done, you can lengthen each line manually, like so, or you can select extend. Select the boundary where you want the lines to stop at. Right click on your mouse and then allow the line to extend towards the edge of the hip rafter. Once that is done, you're going to then trim the excess and draw a line to connect or to show the edge of the ridge board. And I'm going to do the same thing over here again. First step, remove all the excess lines except for these two here. So I'm going to trim, right click, remove these sections here, extend or lengthen. So I'm going to just select the line, pull the blue knob to reach the end here. Make sure it's vertical, it's horizontal, sorry. Or I could select extend, right click, and allow the line to extend towards that point. Trim. And then draw a line from here to here. So this section here is our ridge board. This section here are our hip rafters. Okay, is there anyone who doesn't understand so far? All right then. Just remember that this video will be posted on YouTube, so you can always refer to it when doing your drawings. All right, so before we move on, what we're going to do is color code each section of our roof. So these two lines here represent the hip rafter. So we're going to change the layer to hip rafter. Not hip rafter, hip rafter. All right. And this section here is our ridge board. So we're going to change the color to red, potentially that's a ridge board. So if you were to select any line that represents the components within the roof, if you were to select this section here, automatically it's going to show you it's a hip rafter. If you select this here, it's going to show you it's a ridge board. All right, now our meter is going to end in 10 minutes. You know, because this is a free version, feel free, well, when you're disconnected, please reconnect into, well, re-invite yourself into the group, into the Zoom chat, please, okay? So what we've done was building outline, fascia board, hip rafter, ridge board. Now what we need to do is create the common rafters and hip jack rafters to fill in the space within. All right. So for those of you who don't know, the common rafters are the rafters that touch the ridge board. The hip jack rafters are the rafters that touch the hip rafter. So again, common rafters touch ridge board. Hip jack rafter are those that touch the hip rafter. Take note of that, please. Now, when drawing rafters, it doesn't matter where you start. It just matters on the distance that you keep between the rafters. Now, usually rafters are placed on centers meaning that from one center of one rafter, so if I was to draw a line from this section here, from this section here, say here, and repeat the same thing over here. All right. If I was to measure this, the rafters at its centers, from this point to this point, the measurement is 600. So it means that the rafters are placed 600 millimeters or 2 feet on centers. All right. Now, that is not the distance you're going to get between the rafters if you were to measure them according to thickness, like so. As you can see, it's 550 millimeters. Hold on, please. All right. So again, when you're measuring on centers, it means that from the center of one rafter to the center of the other rafter, the distance is 600. It's not the same as when you measure the distance of the rafters from between their sides. It's going to be 50 millimeters less because of the thickness of the rafter. So how would you represent rafters being placed on center within your drawing? What you need to do is start or draw a line at any point. So I'm gonna start by drawing a line from this section here. All right. And then I'm gonna offset the thickness. Well, not the thickness, sorry. I'm gonna then offset the distance that I want the spacings between my rafters to be. So the spacings can vary from any distance from, let's say, 600 millimeters, 900 millimeters. It could be 450 millimeters in some cases. Because this here is 600, we're going to do the same below. So we're going to offset 600. About a few times. But remember, you're going in one direction, please, okay? All right, if you wish to go all the way down, you can do that. But I'm going to show you a shorter way in doing so. So as you can see, the distances between these lines that I have here are 600. Now I'm going to add the thickness to the rafters, but remember, it's either you're adding the thickness towards your right or you're adding the thickness towards your left. It doesn't matter which direction, just make sure that you keep it consistent. So offset 50, enter. I'm going to go towards my right. There we go. All right. Now, instead of having to replicate these lines throughout the entire section of the roof, what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to select the last 4 that I've done. I'm going to select the copy option, and I'm going to start each copy at this point right here. Now remember the point where I've started. I'm not choosing this inner, I'm choosing the second line. And then I'm going to place it over here at a similar point and just continue until it has filled up the space. We have 1 extra rafter that's out. We're going to remove that. Now I'm going to do the same thing in the opposite direction. So I think I'm going to need at least 4 about 5 or 6 rafters. Same thing, copy selection. Be mindful of the area in which you're holding this section here. I'm going to replicate it in that direction. And there I have my rafters filled within 1 section of my roof. Now I'm going to trim the excess lines. Look carefully on how I'm trimming. Select trim. Select the boundary where I want the lines to stop at. So anything beyond where these blue highlighted lines are, I want everything to be removed. Right click on your mouse and then you remove each line individually, or you can do it in groups. Do the same thing. So as you can see, all the lines are trimmed from this section here. Move over on the other side, repeat the same thing. Remember that what I just did there, or I remove them in groups, ensure that the green highlighted space is the one that you use and not the blue. The blue would, well, we can't get the blue in this one, so it shouldn't be a problem. All right. Now we have about 2 minutes and 45 seconds remaining on this session. So if you're kicked out into the group, I'm asking you please to just re-invite yourself. All right. And that's how we complete 1 section of our roof. Remember, common rafters are the ones that touch the ridge board. So I'm going to select all the common rafters here. I'm going to change the layer to common rafter. And hip jack rafters are the ones that touch the hip rafter. So I'm going to select all the hip jack rafters over here. And change them into a hip jack rafter layer. All right. Is there anyone who doesn't understand so far? Any questions? No questions? All right then. So before 1 minute is up, I'm going to just show you this last thing. And then if you feel comfortable doing this entire section over on this section here, feel free to do so. But in the event that you're in exam, you may want to save as much time as you can, sorry. So the best thing to do is to select the rafters. Okay. Find a midpoint. In this case, it can be at the edge of the fascia board, or it could be just by the ridge board right here. You're going to select mirror and then rotate the rafters over on the other side. Make sure it's straight. Select. It's going to ask you if you want to erase the source object, and you're going to say no. All right. And that's how you create the same rafters over on the other side. I'm just waiting for Zoom to kick us out.